And joining us in our studio now to discuss the legalization of marijuana is Morgan Fox. He's from the Marijuana Policy Project. Morgan, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
As you know, several states this year approved legalization or the decriminalization of marijuana. Has America crossed the threshold at this point?
We're definitely moving in the right direction. As you said, more and more states are starting to reconsider marijuana prohibition. More than half of American voters think that marijuana should be treated similarly to alcohol, judging from the fact that it's safer than alcohol. And Congress has finally decided to start rolling back the war on medical marijuana. So things are definitely looking good, but there's a lot of work to do.
What do you think's behind this? Why has this evolved to this point?
Well, I think a big portion of it is public education. Once people start to realize that marijuana is safer than alcohol, it becomes impossible to defend the policies that we have in place to attempt to control it.
I see. Okay. The District of Columbia, as you know, voted to decriminalize, but the U.S. lawmakers approved legislation just recently with an amendment blocking this law. What motivated this action if you feel like people have been educated to this point?
I think it's just another example of lawmakers trying to interfere with D.C.'s ability to have self-determination. But that law actually did not prevent the District of Columbia from decriminalizing marijuana or from making it legal for adults. It just prevents it from controlling and regulating it, which is really a backwards decision.
I see. How big of a lobbying industry is there out there for the legalization or decriminalization of marijuana?
I think it's starting to really build up steam, in part because of support from people that realize that this substance should not be legal, and by making it legal, we can control it.
I see. And why is it that the West Coast states have been the first to get on board?
It's difficult to say. I think it's largely a cultural shift, but also the fact that they've had the most experience with marijuana as a medicine and the most experience with controlling it. So they've been moving in that direction a lot quicker than a lot of other states. But we're seeing a lot of progress in New England and, as you said, Washington, D.C. We're going to be seeing legislation in Maryland and half a dozen other New England and East Coast states in the very near future.
Are there any kind of stats that support the education that say marijuana is not as bad as you think?
Absolutely. I mean, this substance is demonstrably safer than alcohol and has a wide variety of medical uses. So there's no reason that we should be treating it as harshly as we do.
What about the theory that once you start using marijuana, then you move on to another drug?
There's absolutely nothing about marijuana that makes people more intrinsically likely to use other drugs. If anything, prohibition is the gateway because illicit drug dealers have no incentive to not sell you anything. I mean, when's the last time that somebody tried to offer you crack while you were buying a bottle of wine?
Right, that's a very good point. Do you see actually the push of decriminalization because of the strict drug enforcement?
I think it definitely has played a part into it. With people using social networking, it's a lot easier for people to see the injustices that have been carried out in the name of the war on drugs, and people are sick of it. There's no reason for them to be able to have to pay these taxes and see their communities being destroyed by laws that are supposed to protect them from something that's safer than alcohol.
Is there any way, Morgan, at all to sort of judge or put on a scale how much money was being spent to stop the use and the sale of marijuana in the United States?
It was hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and that money could be used towards education, healthcare, and a myriad of other uses, in addition to the revenue that we could get from taxing the substance in a regulated market.
Alrighty. Morgan Fox from the Marijuana Policy Project. We appreciate your time and insight.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on our broadcast.